Hello, my name is Ralph Peterson, and in this video, I am going to walk you step by step on how we create our QAPI program, how we actually put our plan together in place for QAPI. And for those who may be new to what is QAPI, QAPI is an acronym that stands for Quality Assurance and Performance Improvement. And for those of us who work in healthcare, senior care, it is mandatory that we all have a QAPI program. And these QAPI programs start with an actual policy, like an actual plan on how you're going to run QAPI. And so in this video, I'm going to go over what our QAPI plan looks like, how we structure our QAPI plan. And by the way, it's just the way that we do it. There are tons of ways to establish your QAPI plan. There just does have to be a couple of key components to it, which I will go over as I show you how we do it. And I'll just give you some best practices. But for overall general purposes, this is a really great starting point for those who are trying to put together a QAPI program in their organization. Watch this video. You're not going to want to go anywhere. I'm going to give you all the details you need to know. Here we go. Let me see. Okay, so as you see, I just have it as just called my Mastering QAPI. That's my little program's called How to Master QAPI. So Mastering QAPI, how to set up a QAPI program. The first thing that most organizations want to try to flesh out here when you are writing your QAPI plan is, what is the purpose? Why are you having, I should have had this already as a black pencil. Why are you having a QAPI program in the first place? And just to be completely transparent with what the intent of the QAPI program is, it is an intent to have you be proactive. So the intent of a QAPI program, the purpose of a QAPI program, is to be proactive in your approach to find problems and solve them before they become big messes and big problems. At the same time, I would also invite you to consider that the other intent, or to further expand on the intent of being proactive, organizations that embrace QAPI and utilize QAPI in their day-to-day decision-making are what we would call a learning organization. And a learning organization is an organization that is committed to making decisions based on experience, based on data, not based on feelings, not based on hunches, literally based on data. And they're utilizing the data to learn from, to get better from, to become a better organization. So a purpose statement is simply making a statement of why you are having a QAPI program. And invite you to consider, don't say because the state's making me. That's not the reason we're having. It's true, but it's not the reason. The next thing is your mission and your vision. Here's the thing about your mission and vision statement. Nobody's going to hold it against you. You can simply take your mission statement off the lobby wall and go, our organization's mission is blah, 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 blah. Our organization's vision is blah, 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 blah. You certainly can do that. However, it may be more beneficial, it may help you more if you take the time to write a mission statement and a vision statement specifically about your QAPI program. What are you trying to accomplish with this QAPI program, and what is your vision? Your vision in this QAPI program is to what? Is to become the very best nursing home, the very best assisted living, to have the very best quality indicator numbers, to reduce turnover, to be the ideal place to work. It could be the vision, our mission is to evaluate and improve every single work process that we can think of and find in our organization until we have evaluated and improved all of them. And then you know what we're going to do? We're going to evaluate and improve them some more. Like that could be your mission, and your vision could be something about how you want to be the best of the best. And so trying to create that really juicy, hot vision statement for your QAPI program. Again, you don't have to. You can kind of plug and play already, but you might be a little more helpful. Then the next thing we do is we establish who our QAPI teams are. Now, let me just give you a kind of a brief understanding of what I mean by a QAPI team, because most organizations when I first start to work with only have one QAPI team. And it is made up of all the department heads. All the department heads are mandatory. If you're a department head, you're going to be part of QAPI, which means once a month we get together and the organization buys some sandwiches for all of us, and we get a 60 or 90-minute meeting where we, a couple weeks before the meeting, we maybe hand out a piece of paper to our department head and say, go find something wrong. Go find something that you can improve on. Go find me some system in your housekeeping department or dietary department or on the C wing or on the rehab wing, or right, like we just kind of send them off like little butterflies. Just go find something that you might want to report on that's interesting, and then come back to this meeting. Well, we do things a little differently here at the Core 14. What we do is we take our QAPI team, all of our department heads, and we split it up into what we call excellence teams or QAPI teams or whatever you want to call them. And we give them all very specific tasks to address on a weekly basis. Our QAPI teams don't meet monthly. Our QAPI teams meet weekly, and then we have a monthly QAPI team meeting, and we have a quarterly QAPI team meeting. But first, about QAPI teams. A QAPI team is made up usually of a few department heads and a non-manager, meaning a housekeeper, a dietary aide, a nursing assistant, a nurse, somebody who is not a department head, not in a position of leadership. We also want them part of our QAPI teams. And so if we have, let's say I have 10 department heads. With 10 department heads, I may just simply split my department head team into 2 teams. So I would have 5 department heads on one team and 5 department heads on the other, and then I would add 1 non-manager to each team, so I would have 6 people on each team. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify, A, how many teams are we going to have? 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, it's all up to you, and it really depends on the size of your organization. I work with an organization that has 22 department heads. So we have a lot more. We have 4 teams, right? So because there are so many department heads, we have 4 QAPI teams. And as you can imagine also, with 22 department heads, you know what that means? We have a lot of processes. We have a lot of things that we can evaluate and improve. So the more teams, the better. The L in front of each one of these names is just to indicate who the team lead is. But if this were how I was setting up my teams, I would literally just write their names. All the names of the people who are part of my team, and I would just denote who's my team leader. That's important because the team leader is the one who's going to be speaking on behalf of the teams. They're going to be the ones reporting their findings. They're going to be the ones reporting not only what they found, but what their suggestion is as a team for QAPI on how to evaluate and improve whatever it was that they were evaluating. A little sidebar about this, especially about meeting times, because here the other thing is we also want to establish when are we meeting. And like I said, our teams meet weekly. And our QAPI team meets monthly. And then we also have a special QAPI team, I'm going to say QAPI plus quarterly. Quarterly. And now let me explain what I mean by that. So, in order to get the most out of QAPI, we find it is best to have our QAPI teams, A, be small, so 5-6 people max. We don't want more than 5 or 6 people. 2-3 is probably the minimum people on a QAPI team. So between 3 and 6 people is a really good number for a QAPI team. And their job is to evaluate and improve a process, a job assignment, a clinical outcome, something that we've already predetermined for them to be looking at. And what we're going to ask them to do is meet every week. And we're only talking about a 30-minute meeting. Sometimes it could be a little longer, especially if it's the first meeting of the month, where we're trying to get our bearing. We're trying to understand the full complexity of the challenge that's ahead of us. A root cause analysis sometimes can take a little bit more time than others, right? Depending on what you're doing. And so usually about 30 minutes, we allocate, each team gets about 30 minutes to work in QAPI in this group team, and we usually piggyback it with lunch just so we're all on the same page. We're not trying to have anybody stay over or anything like that, but we'll try to piggyback it with lunch. If not do it during lunch, we'll do it right after lunch and take 30, 35, 40 minutes to meet as a team, establish our goals, establish what we're talking about, try to get a strong understanding of it. And then every week that QAPI team is meeting. And the point of that meeting is to identify the problem, do a root cause analysis, brainstorm some possible suggestions, come up with a plan, like the whole thing that and we'll get into exactly how we solve problems using QAPI. But then on a monthly basis, QAPI, all the team leaders get together. Now we used to, when we first started this, we would have the entire QAPI teams all meet together. The problem with that is it's really hard to get a lot done when you only have a limited amount of time, still a 60 or 90 minute meeting on a monthly basis for QAPI, and we're asking people to report their findings. And if you have a lot of people, it can be really challenging. So we've reduced our monthly QAPI meetings to only the team leaders attend. And the team leaders attend, they come in and they say, okay, our job was to evaluate and improve this process, this work process, and this is what we found. And we found this, and we found this, and we found this, and we thought that maybe we could do this, and we think this is going to be the best way to go about it. And then they give it off to the QAPI team, and they say, all the other team leaders, and they say, how about you all? Does this make sense to you? Are we missing anything? How do you think we could or should be proceeding? Right? So you're involving all the team leaders on a monthly basis, are listening to each team leader talk about what they're evaluating and improving for QAPI, and then they give feedback. And then that feedback gets translated back to the team where they start to actually implement the changes that they have come up with, if indeed they have come up with any changes that they want to make. On a quarterly basis, and we've started actually thinking about doing it on a semi-annual basis, so twice a year, every 6 months, rather than quarterly. And again, only because it's becoming to be, it's a little unmanageable. It's a big, big thing to get all of our QAPI teams together. And so we're doing it currently quarterly, but we're thinking about doing it semi-annually, where once a quarter, or everybody who participates in QAPI gets together. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, we want to keep our people who are in our QAPI teams, we want to keep them engaged. We want to treat them nice. We are asking them to do a little bit more work. We are asking them to put themselves out there to try to figure out some of the processes and problems that are going on in our homes and communities. And as you can imagine, that's not an easy task. So we like the idea of bringing everybody in, especially that non-manager. That non-manager should be able to sit at the table with all the other managers in this big, important meeting on a quarterly basis. It's proven to be quite an effective and helpful and real valuable experience for that employee. And again, we want to promote everybody, so what a great idea. And talk about retention. I should put this out there too, that when we ask somebody to be part of our QAPI team, we ask a non-manager to assist us in QAPI. We ask them to assist us in QAPI for the quarter, for 4 months or 3 months, or for half a year. Like the assignment is not for a week and not for a month. It is an assignment for 3 months, for a quarter, maybe even a half a year, or it's an assignment for a year. And here's something interesting that you find is, talk about a retention plan. If you have a good employee and you're trying to engage them, invite them to be part of QAPI, get them to commit that they're going to be part of the QAPI team for 6 months, or maybe even a little longer, 3 months, a quarter, whatever. That is, people show up. They feel important. They feel valued. They feel like they are able to give their opinions and they're able to provide value to everybody. It really, really is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that's all my spiel on QAPI. And you do want to have the meeting times. Have at 12:30, every Tuesday, we're going to meet at 12:30. Like, have it spelled out, because here's the big thing that I want to share about this QAPI plan, because once you write the QAPI plan, who sees it? This isn't like a normal policies and procedures manual that just sticks on the shelf in the administrator's office or in the DON's office. No. This plan is shared with every person who joins QAPI. It is a guide for them. It is an outline for them. It tells them, hey, would you please be on our QAPI team? We would love to have you part of our QAPI mission here, and here is our QAPI outline, and it tells you what we're doing, why we're doing it, what our mission is, our vision, who's on what team, who the team leaders are. It tells you what our meeting times are, right? Like this is something you share with everybody on your QAPI team. So just keep that in mind. The information that you're giving, it should be information that people on the QAPI team can use to schedule and plan and understand what your intent is with the whole QAPI plan. Finally, we get to how do you communicate with key stakeholders? This is super important. It can't be overstated. The number one, well, there's a lot of number one things. So maybe it's not number one. There's a lot of things that we do really well in long-term care and senior care. And trying to find problems and solving problems, we generally are pretty good at it. We all want to do a really good job, and so we're all really cognizant of that. What we sometimes fail on epically is communicating our findings, the changes, what we've seen, what we want to change, how we want to go about it, we want to address. How we communicate with key stakeholders is something that is super helpful if in the QAPI plan you identify. Now, how can you identify? How do you communicate with key stakeholders? Here's the first rule when considering this question. Who are your stakeholders, right? Like identify, ID, who the stakeholders are. Who are they? And by the way, normally your stakeholders are going to be people like residents, family members, employees, maybe some key vendors that you have that are going to be affected by some change or evaluation that you're making. They could be a key stakeholder. Could be the community, could be your discharge planners, could be your feeder hospital. Like just kind of think of like who in your organization or in the periphery of your organization is impacted by the decisions you make. Whoever you are impacting the most are probably your key or most important stakeholders. So first, ID who your stakeholders are, and then just write a little bulleted list of how do you communicate with them. Like, let's talk about residents for a second. How do you communicate with residents? Well, we have one-on-one meetings, we have care plans, we have maybe there's postings on the website, maybe in the front lobby, maybe you have a newsletter. Maybe you're utilizing email, maybe phone calls, maybe you're having formal meetings, informal meetings, maybe there's resident council meetings, right? Like just identify all the places or all the ways in which you communicate with residents. Now do that for family members. Now do that for staff. Then do it for hospital discharge planners, or your feeder hospital, whoever you're going to be there. Usually it's a discharge planner, or key vendors, right? Like just identify the ways in which you communicate with them. And the reason you want to do this is because you're trying to remember that QAPI needs to be communicated. Everything that we find, evaluate, and want to improve needs to be communicated across all of our key stakeholders so they all know what's going on. Keeping them in the loop, very, very important. The next thing we want to do is figure out how we identify problems and challenges. How do you know it's a problem? How do you know it's a challenge? What are you looking for? And I will tell you, on the clinical side, it is easy in the sense that the best thing you can do is track data. So in other words, on the clinical side, let's say that I wanted to track falls and the number of falls that I have. Well, it's not enough to say how many falls do we have this month. It's better to say how many falls did we have in April, how many falls did we have in May, and then how many falls do we have in June. And all of a sudden we have a graph, we have a bar graph where we can see if we were to draw an arrow from April, which seems to be the high, to June, which seems to be the low, we can see that we're trending in the right direction. We're going down. So this is how we identify problems, because what if it was the opposite? What if instead of falls that we're looking at, what if we are looking at satisfaction surveys? What if it's, instead of falls, it's satisfaction? And now look at this same graph. Oh, we're doing pretty good. Not so good. Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Now it's a negative. We're trending in the wrong direction. And so by trending, and you need at least 3 data points, keep that in mind, 3 points of data, could be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 quarters, 3 years, however often you're tracking your data. But that is how you want to be tracking. That is what you're looking for. You're looking for trends, what we call trends. You want to see how you are trending. By identifying your trends, you're going to be identifying your problems and your challenges. Hope that makes sense. How do you solve problems? Now, this is one of the, can be one of the biggest challenges, but I'm just going to lay it out for you, just a small, simple, how most organizations do it. And it's certainly what we teach here at the Core 14, is we simply are going to just do this little process. We're going to do a root cause analysis. We're going to try to find out what is wrong, what is happening, why are we having falls, why are we having unplanned weight loss, why are we having high staff turnover, why are we having low satisfaction scores, why are we having skin tears or breakdowns, right? Like that. So what is happening? That's the root cause. And then, and by the way, there may be more than one root cause. So just be aware that it could be a few things that could be happening, which is totally fine and reasonable. After we do a root cause, we're going to start brainstorming. And by the way, this is all what our teams are doing. Our QAPI teams are the ones who are doing the root cause, and then they're brainstorming. What are they brainstorming? They're brainstorming how to solve the problem arrived from the root cause. And then they're going to come up with a plan. The plan is, okay, we've identified these 2 or 3 possible reasons on why we still have a big number of unplanned weight loss. And we think some of the interventions that we're going to make, i.e. plans that I think we're going to work, are going to be this, and this. So we have a plan. Now, let me pause here and say, this is where the teamwork ends. The individual teamwork ends usually here. Their job is to evaluate a problem or a situation that's going on, find out what is possible causes of the problem, brainstorm some ideas, and come up with a couple of plans that may be put in action. Then the team lead meets with the entire QAPI team lead team monthly, and they share these. And in that monthly QAPI meeting with all the team leads, they decide on the plan. So you imagine coming to and go, like, we think it could be this, and this. And, we think that the best way to go about it is with this plan, or maybe this one. And so then it gives all the other team leaders the opportunity to go, you know what I was thinking is this, or did you consider that, or let's try this, and see, so now the team lead is going to, or the leadership team, the QAPI leadership team, all the leaders are going to be the ones helping you develop the plan. Then, once you decide on the plan, you're going to do, so I'm just going to put plan, do. For those who know, I'm literally going to do a PDSA. That's what I'm going to be, this little acronym that I'm going with here. So we decide on the plan, and then we're going to implement the plan. We're going to actually do the plan. And who's going to do the plan? That is determined here as well. Who is in charge of the plan? It's usually going to be the nurse unit, whoever that nurse unit. If there's a problem on that unit, then the nurse manager is going to be in charge. It always defers to the person who is responsible ultimately for whatever it is that we're trying to solve. If it's a housekeeping problem that we're trying to solve, like a laundry problem or something, then of course it's the housekeeping manager who is going to be in charge of implementing the plan. The next thing that we do is we set up a time and a measure to study. a time and a measure to study. How often are we going to evaluate whether or not the plan's working? We could be evaluating daily, weekly, monthly, whatever the time frame is. And not only how often are we measuring, but what are we measuring? Like in laundry, if we're measuring, like we identify, this is a very common one. We identify we don't have enough washcloths in the building, especially during AM care. There just simply isn't enough washcloths in the building. And so our excellence team would go down, they do a root cause analysis, they find out the best they can, why don't we have enough washcloths? Like what's happening to all the washcloths? And then they would come up with a plan. The leadership team in QAPI would decide on the plan, and then housekeeping would implement it. The housekeeping manager would be in charge of implementing the plan. And we may track daily because it's washcloths that are being affected daily. And what are we measuring? We're measuring whether or not we have enough washcloths, right? So we know that we're measuring the number of washcloths we have, and we're measuring daily. So it's a daily thing. And then from this measure, we're going to act or make a decision. And the decision is the plan working or is it not working? Did we solve the problem or did we not solve the problem? Are we getting closer or are we getting further away? Because sometimes, I got to say like this, use a little Seinfeld analogy. Solving problems in long-term care is a lot like knocking over a vending machine. You can't just go knock over a vending machine. You've got to push it back, you got to get it some momentum. And so it's moving and moving, then you can push it over. It's kind of like that with problem solving. You don't just solve the problem immediately. You chip away at it a little bit here, a little bit there. You get a further understanding of what the actual problem is. And so it's a terrible analogy. It's a Seinfeld joke. Anyway. And then you make a decision. So the acting is making a decision. Make a decision. And what decision are you making? The decision you're making is the plan working? Does it need to be tweaked? If it needs to be tweaked, how are we tweaking it? And every act brings you right back to the root cause. And every root cause will bring you back to brainstorming, and every brainstorming session will bring you back to a plan, and every plan will lead you back to doing the plan, and every doing the plan will bring you to studying the outcomes of that plan, and every study will, of course, get you to act on the study. So this whole root cause, brainstorm, plan, do, study, act is a continual cycle until the problem is completely solved. That's it. Yeah. So that's a lot of chicken scratch, but that's it in a nutshell. Now we get into your key performance measures. And this is where you are deciding, well, what are you going to measure? Like, what is important to your organization? And as you can see, I have listed here clinical and non-clinical. And clinical are things like falls, unplanned weight loss, antipsychotic meds without diagnosis, pain, whatever. You like all the clinical things that you measure that are important to you, important to your success, and of course important to your residents. Non-clinical processes include and these are very important, like call light response time. Meal temps or delivery time, which is usually meal temps go down the longer it takes to deliver, right? So delivery time and meal temps, they kind of go hand in hand. Linen distribution, right? Distribution, like non-clinical, but aids in the clinical. These are things that are super important to your organization's success. Non-clinical and clinical. And then we have key work processes and job routines. Now, key work processes, key always means most important. Key work processes are, to understand what a key work process is, it is the way in which you do something that you couldn't do without in your organization. Let's talk about admissions. So admissions is a really big common one that it's one of the big work processes that we start with as an organization. When someone hires us to come in and start working with their QAPI team, admissions is one of those key work processes that we get right into. Like, how do we go from finding a new resident, getting the referral, and walking through that entire process until that resident is safe and comfortable in our nursing home? What does that process look like? Who do we contact? Who's in charge of this? Who's in charge of that? Who's in charge of that? Right? Like, who's signing documentation? Who's explaining? Who's giving the tours? Who's doing the evaluating? Who's making sure that the medical equipment is available? Who's making sure that it's a high-low bed or an air mattress or O2 concentrators are like all available for the resident, right? Like every step in the way, that is a very, very important key work process. I would also say that so is hiring an employee, onboarding an employee, terminating an employee, delivering laundry, delivering personal laundry, creating menus and food services, activities, how to bring somebody down into an activity, how to have an activity on the unit as opposed to having an activity in a common space where the residents come to you or you go to the resident. All of these are important key work processes. And how do you pass meds? That's a key work process. How do you toilet somebody? Key work process. How do you give showers? Key work process. Again, what I would invite you to consider is making out a list of all the key work processes you can think of. And by the way, I'll send you a whole list of key work processes. All you have to do is email me at ralph@ralphpeterson.com and in the subject line say, I want some key work process, or can you please help with key work? I'll send it to you. Send you a whole list of key work processes. Then the next thing we do is we collect all the job routines that we do, because all the job routines that we have are work processes. Every job routine is a work process. Every job routine, administrator job routine, DON job routine, housekeeping job routine, dietary job routine, activity job routine, social services, maintenance, CNA or STNA if you're in Ohio, or LNA if you're in New Hampshire, or Vermont, whatever, your nursing aides or your RN, your LPNs, all of those job routines are made up of work processes. And so we at the Core 14 recommend that you identify your most impactful core key job routines, which usually are your nursing assistants, your LPNs, your RNs, dietary, housekeeping. All of them are super important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them, of course. But write down your key job routines that you may think would be helpful to evaluate and improve in QAPI. That is at the end of my list here. So that is, in a nutshell, how we structure, let me get out of this, that's how we structure or how we create our plan. We are simply saying, okay, we're going to have a purpose, we're going to have a timeline, we're going to have our team set, we're going to have our mission, our vision, we're going to know how we communicate with our key stakeholders, we're going to know what is important to our organization, we're going to know how we solve problems, how we expect our teams to solve problems, we're going to have our meeting times. Everything structurally, hopefully you see, everything structurally is set up with this simple plan. It's not easy because it's going to take some work to try to figure out what you want to measure, what's important. The only other thing that I would add is, let me go back to this just so I can have a little piece of paper to draw on. The only thing that I would add, because if you look at this, you could have a lot of clinical things that you want to measure and keep track of, and then maybe not so many, maybe 3, 4, 5 key non-clinical work or processes like call out response time or linen delivery or something. And then, key work processes, you probably got another good 5, 6, 8 of those. And then job routines, you're talking about the most important ones, which ones are not important. So maybe there's 8 or 10 of those, right? Like all of a sudden you could find yourself with a list of like 50 items, and that's not helpful. Actually, let me say 2 things. One, that's not helpful because if you only have 2 teams, then you're going to ask 2 teams to each do evaluate 25 things over a 12-month period of time, which may not be terrible because that just means two things a month. But for my money, my experience, the sweet spot number is a one issue at a time for your non-clinical team. So that means if you have one non-clinical team, then you only want to identify 12 things to evaluate and improve for the year. If you have two clinical teams, then you would have two non-clinical teams, then you would have 24 things, right? So you have more things that you can evaluate and improve. And by evaluate and improve, I'm talking about your key work processes and your job routines, and maybe some of your non-clinical work processes. The clinical part, however, is its own team. This is usually a team that is mostly made up of nurses, and we'd love having a non-nurse or a non-clinical person on this clinical team because a little perspective goes a long way. But the clinical team, the clinical QAPI team, does not have a set, like these 12, for let's say I had one team and I have 12 processes, I'm going to have all 12 of these processes already written down a year in advance. Like if I'm going to start this QAPI program in December, I already have from December to November next year, I would have all of the processes that I want the QAPI team to look at. This month I want you to look at this, then this, then this. I would just have it all spelled out. That's a non-clinical QAPI team. A clinical QAPI team, however, if we go all the way back up here, a clinical QAPI team, however, is tied to the outcomes. So they are on a monthly basis always trending and tracking their clinical outcomes. What clinical outcomes? The ones that you identified here. The ones that you identified here. Whatever is important to your organization. You're going to track these clinical outcomes. Most organizations use a dashboard of some kind. We do too. Where we're trending our clinical outcomes. We're seeing how many falls, how many errors there are, how many skin tears, breakdowns, whatever. And the trend, up or down, good or bad, is what dictates what we focus on. So if we start seeing, skin tears going out of control, that clinical team just goes, all right, let's start focusing on skin tears. And what do? A root cause analysis. They start trying to figure out what's going on, why is it happening. Oftentimes with something like this, it's usually only one person or two people. We have a number of falls, but it's one person who keeps falling, right? So it may just be we're hyper focusing on that one individual, those two individuals. Totally fine. The point of this is to proactively prevent these kinds of injuries from continuing. Prevent the type of negative outcomes that you are trying not to have, and make them into positive outcomes. We're trying to predict the future. That's what a falls assessment is. Anytime a new resident comes in, we have a fall assessment. What is a fall assessment? A fall assessment is a best guess. It is a prediction. What is the likelihood of this resident falling? And if there's a high likelihood that the resident could be falling, what can we do about it right now? That's the whole intent. That's the intent of QAPI. It is to proactively try to predict the future and see what's happening. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it makes sense. I hope that you're able to make your own structure. If you would like help making the structure, or you'd like some guidance on a little bit of how we actually set us all up and maybe some tips and pointers, do two things. Number one, subscribe to this channel. This is where I share all my content. And number two, if you want some one-on-one consulting, give me a call, shoot me an email at ralph@ralphpeterson.com, and I will see you soon.